So all this kind of fell into place with Rotary, our Rotary Club, with service above self and what we're doing. So not so much a mission trip, but a service trip that we do for Rotary. And we had ways of funding and matching funds in Rotary that help pay for the build. And I say at my age, it's hard to having life-changing experiences, but this truly was. We went down to 7 of us from our Rotary Club. It was very, I mean, just to see these people, like from the sermon today, that, you know, we have abundance, they don't have a lot, but they are super happy people. And they're so appreciative of what you're doing for them. And, you know, you're there, and I think they've fed us so well, and, you know, just they don't have much, but what they have, they share. And it's just, you know, it's just a reminder that sometimes we forget about all the things that we have and the things that others, you know, don't have, but are still happy, and I think they might be happier because they don't have kind of all the other things like the social medias and all that. But so she said it would be good, and I do what Nancy tells me to do. So, and it was awesome. You know, it was just a great trip.
Oh, that's terrific. So did you go last fall?
We went this time last fall. So it was the last week of October and the first week of November. So it's just about a year ago now.
Had you been to Costa Rica before?
I had never been to Costa Rica. So, and everybody goes, oh, you're going to Costa Rica. You know, they're thinking beaches and resorts. We were not at beaches and resorts. We were in very remote areas of Costa Rica. I don't want to say impoverished. It's just third world. It's just, that's the way they live, and that's the way it is, and that's where we were at. And we stayed in places. We weren't in luxury hotels or whatever. One night we're in basically dorm rooms, you know, with no hot water and things like that.
The accommodations were great.
Yes, the accommodations were wonderful. Actually, the group we were with was wonderful. You know, Nancy warned us at times you're going to have disagreements and maybe even not like each other so well. It didn't happen for us. That was probably the biggest surprise for me, is we had fun. We got along really well. We got really along with the families and got to know the families so well. One of the little girls made this friendship bracelet for all of us. So it was a very rewarding trip.
Wow. Did you see an oven in action?
Yes, and Nancy has to remind me where we were for all this. We did 2 builds. We did one build, almost a complete build in one area, and then we started another project, a base of the oven in another area. But we went to
Jenny's in Santa Rosa.
So Nancy made sure we went to one that was complete. I was in there making dough, and we were making pizzas and taking pizzas out of the oven, so we got a good chance to see one complete. And then somebody pulls up on a scooter. They throw all the baked goods in the scooter, and they're driving around town to deliver all these the bread as after it was made. So it's quite interesting how it was. Everybody's on little mopeds or scooters. So we saw it delivered too, but we got a chance to knead the bread, and that's not one of my strengths. You know, my wife's here somewhere probably, but but it was very fun.
So did they take it out and sell it then, or do people just donate, or how does that work?
Nancy can tell you more about how the whole process.
Exactly.
Yeah, so every community is a little bit different, and they sell their bread, whether it's at a farmer's market or on the back of a scooter, or walking up and selling it right at their location. Others actually sell it at small general stores. Every oven is a little bit different because every woman builds their own business model based on their community and based on how they foresee their business is going to be run. So in that case, they did mostly deliveries. So people would order, she'd post it on social media, and then she would go out and distribute the bread according to what the people had ordered.
One thing that was surprising too is there's still very much a division of labor in Costa Rica. The women did the baking, the cooking, the cleaning. The men did work, but when they came back, they'd help out some. But these women's groups was really impressive because these women, it'd be from that little village or that little area would get together, these women would get together, and they'd all be doing the baking and the cooking and the kneading of the dough and everything. But it's amazing that the strength of these women's groups to do this and turn it into a little micro industry for them.
Yeah. Yeah, so you probably, being in banking, you probably have experience with, small businesses, at least people coming to you for startup money and that kind of thing. Did anything remind you with the initial startup and how that worked?
No, I was part of the fundraising, but Nancy has
Yeah.
to tell you how the
Yeah.
actually
Well,
they do
Nancy,
the-
you
they do the-
mentioned, it's like any small business, the first 3 years are tricky, and you learn a lot, but you can't probably expect to make any money.
Well, that's not probably the case. They're
Okay.
pretty much turning money around right away. The volume varies in every organization, or in every project. I think the key in understanding in this is that 3-year idea about starting a small business. It isn't, you have to give it at least 3 years. Even here, that's a statistic. We too believe the same, which is why it's so important for Bricks to Bread to follow and be on that journey with our women for a minimum of 3 years. So when they engage in their partnership with us, that's a commitment that they'll stay with us and they'll work with us, and we'll be on their side and take that journey with them. So when they have their ups or their downs, we have staff in country that really help them get out of the ruts, or when they're dealing with some barriers or circumstances that are really challenging, we come together as a group and help them kind of through those difficult times. And that's really important, because we're not, an organization that goes and builds an oven and just leaves. We're there for the journey with them. So very, very important, especially the idea we all know, small businesses, entrepreneurs, the most challenging times are in those first 3 years when they're learning the process and the journey, and learning their market and learning their pricing and, all that stuff. So.
Which is an important part of this mission or this service is, we just go there and build the ovens, make these connections, meet these people, then we leave, and Nancy goes back in her group and new builds, but they are the ones who, most important is to keep these momentum going on this, just don't build an oven, because it's a lot of work. Let me tell you, it's hot, it's rainy, it's a lot of work, and the fiberglass, I think, is still in my shirt here because I'm itching today, but
Yeah.
But we go, so somebody has to support them as going forward, and these women's groups are really the kind of the backbone of this experience.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool. Well, April and Abby, you went recently, and why did you want to go, or how did that sort of process happen?
Well, Nancy's been trying to get me to Costa Rica for like 30 years, so finally it happened. Timing was just good for us to go with school being out, and Abby had talked to a friend, and her friend and mom decided to go too. So it was just one of those things I've always wanted to do, and doing this project just made it happen, I guess. But it was, as Brad said, just absolutely the most amazing thing ever, and the connections we built with the families. There's a little boy in the photo, the younger one. I wanted to bring him home with me. He was just my favorite. But we didn't speak the language, but yet we were able to communicate and build these wonderful relationships with this family. And we were able to see a couple ovens that are currently being used. The girls worked super duper hard and were just total rock stars on their oven building. If you see like the arch in this picture, this isn't the oven that we built, but the girls did that themselves, the whole entire thing.
Wow.
All 4 of them, all 4
Wow.
arches. We just stepped away. They did a great job the first one, and we're like, okay, you guys need to continue.
Yeah. Well, when Abby puts her mind to something, she gets it done. Right, Abby? Abby, did you have any concerns about going to a different country and maybe not being able to understand them, different climate, all that goes with it?
No.
Nope. Brave. She's just like, I'll do it. Well, you worked really hard to raise money. What did you do to raise money for the trip?
We had a pizza party and we sold bread at Nancy's.
So one really important part for us in Bricks to Bread is that idea about building our global leaders locally. And so the opportunities that we have to support young adults in their journey is really important. Getting them outside of our beautiful entitled bubble here and seeing real world is important, but just as important is that they too have skin in the game. And if they want to go on this trip, their parents aren't just going to pull out their wallet and pay for it. They're going to put some skin in the game. And Abby and her girlfriend, Rosie, were amazing. They coordinated with the help of their mom and a super fun pizza party. They did letter campaigns asking for people to support their journey. And their goal was to raise enough money to pay for their trip, but they actually raised enough money to pay for their trip and build that oven, which that was a first for us to have.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so
'Cause how much money
imagine
was
the work. It was over $10,000. So 2 young women really at it, and I have to say I was a little surprised, teeny boppers. I had one. So not only was I surprised with that, but they worked so hard. I was a little worried about, are they just going to be a little, ooh, bugs, ishy, and they didn't want to get their fingers dirty.
It was.
And they were rock stars. They were more upset when they didn't have something to do. So the mere fact that we had them doing that whole arch, that to me was a first, but we didn't want to step away because they did it better than I could have done it. So
The hardest part for us anyway, because they're all spaced on the top differently there and the bottom, so it takes a lot of coordination, and you come to one end where it all has to meet, where you put in your keystone there, but it's not easy.
and they
I'm
did
impressed that
they did
it.
all of them.
Yeah, we got scolded. Every once in a while, I'd get the look from Josefina, and I know that look. Something wrong.
The girls did a better job than Kate and I think, with building the oven.
Yeah. What did you think of the people?
They are just amazing and such kind people, very, very welcoming and opening their home, and it's just, I was in love. I left a piece of my heart in Costa Rica. They just amazing, everybody that we met. Even the neighbors of the family, were just very, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing. I felt like that when we went to El Salvador, just, you may not be able to understand each other, but you do understand each other because there's so much with body language and actions and the emotion, and they're just, I felt like, oh, this is really nice. I think that it's so worthwhile to do trips like these, and this is a really special one because you get bread. Anytime Nancy brings that bread here, we're all like, right there. So, I bet the pizza's really good.
So speaking of pizzas, we just had an event at our oven site for a local business who the manager wanted to do an employee gathering once every quarter. She asked if they could do it at our brick oven. I said, well, of course. So if at any time you all know of a small an organization that wants to get their employees together, similar to what you did with Friends, it was a great way for us to introduce Bricks to Bread to another community. And we had a great time. And the pizza was awesome. So shout out to any opportunities to bring you around our brick oven to share about what Bricks to Bread does in Latin America is a great opportunity.
October 6th and 8th.
October 4th and 6th. Yeah. We also have our annual event.
That's coming up, isn't it?
It is. So October Fiesta, we actually celebrate around our brick oven, baking lots of pretzels. Many of you have already had our pretzels, but imagine them fresh out of the oven. We've got brats on a stick, Minnesota style. We've got great desserts from a local bakery, but as well from a restaurant in Robbinsdale. That's the chef is Costa Rican, and it's a great time to come together. We have local brews and local beverages that support us, and it's our biggest fundraiser, our only fundraiser, and one of the ways that we not only generate money to build our ovens and support our programming, but it also is a way for us to celebrate. So we'll have a lot. We'll have the Rotary Club will be there to share their experiences. These guys will be here. I'm going to pull on Abby and Rosie to volunteer and help the future oven builders raise some money. So
That's great.
October 4th and 6th. There's
Yeah.
information out on the booth.
I want to see if you have questions. I mean, there are so many things that we could talk about, but we were trying to just say these are the trips, and the experience is life-changing.
When's the next trip?
When's the next trip?
We actually have quite a few trips coming up. We have 2 ovens that will be built with just our local staff and volunteers in November. It'll be in the northern region, or southern region of Costa Rica. So that will be without volunteers. We do about half of our ovens without volunteers because they're in remote areas where it's really hard to find lodging. And then we actually have a build with volunteers scheduled for January, February, and one for either March or April. So back-to-back builds with volunteers in a great time to travel to Costa Rica, January, February, and March.
There also is talk about that in the future, Nancy would like to get into some other Central America countries, and we might consider doing one with El Salvador, with our partner down there, our church down there. So I don't know if that's real or not. That's going to take some work to get done, but that's out there in the wind sometime that we might be interested in doing that.
Yeah, that's what all the money that we're trying to raise here is being pooled towards, is an oven build for Trinity, and the goal and the hope, the dream, the prayers, please, is that we could do that in the sister community in El Salvador.
Can you talk a little bit about the logistics of building the oven? How do you get the bricks there? I mean, and is that always a timing issue? And how does that, could you just talk a little bit about that?
The process actually to build the oven only takes 6 or 7 days, depending on what we're doing in between those times. And getting the materials is all quite simple as well. We just have the women actually coordinating. They have to get 3 different bids, find a local, what's the way that you say that in English, like a hardware store or whatever, like a Home Depot version. And we get a lot of the bricks actually from a brick manufacturing company in the Central Valley, which is where the majority of the population of Costa Rica lives. But they have these brick in abundance because they use the brick for building ovens for roasting coffee, roasting cacao, doing pottery. So having the refractory brick is available in Costa Rica, as it is we've found in other Latin American countries. So we just get the supplies there. Everything is there when our volunteers get there, and we just go to work. So the women actually participate in that process by getting those bids and making sure that all the materials are on the site, and then we just go to work. We go to work. We have enough of our tools to kind of keep us all busy. While we were there, the Rotary Club didn't like the state of some of our tools, so we were blessed to go to a hardware store with a couple of them, and they restocked our tools for us one day.
So we had a member who actually knows something about tools, Chris Reese.
Yeah.
And
Can
he
you
did that.
imagine a guy
But
in a tool store? I mean, it was like in a candy store.
I think that one of the most challenging parts is they have to mix the cement, and we did it on the ground, but I think we have a cement mixer now?
Yeah, so for years, people have been complaining because we actually mix the cement on the ground, and a lot of people had enough of that. So we actually had a donor who not only invested in a vehicle for us, but the requirement was we had to get a new vehicle, and I said, well, we can't have we had to get a mixer. We can't have a mixer without a vehicle, and we can't have a mixer without a trailer. So we had somebody who actually funded all 3 of those, and now we just, not to say just, but we just push a button, and it's glorious. You guys got the, you
Yeah,
guys
that's
had,
incentive to go back. We had to,
I
we had
know,
to mix-
right? They had the opportunity to use it for the first time.
Abby even ran the cement vibrator.
How long did it take?
6 days, 6.5 days. So work for just 6 or 7 days. That's like a week.
So that's a good question, because we did two separate, we were kind of near the end of one project, or built the main part of it, and then you do build the base area. So we did two different projects, so that took up 2 weeks, but it wasn't working every day. One day we went on a hike to a waterfall, and I wanted to see a toucan, so finally I saw one toucan up in the tree or whatever. That was a mission of mine, but we did have some time to like explore the countryside and see some sights and have some, relaxed time too.
Quick question. What type of investment is made from the baking family into the oven? Is it subsidized with a donation, or how does that work?
That's a great question, and actually it's a concern for many of the women. So we kind of try to alleviate that concern because they don't have the cash investment to do it most often. So what we tell them is they have to have skin in the game, and we tell them about other ways that people have done it. A great example, and in both of these cases, is that, like, for example, when they pay for their trip, they're paying for meals, right? So a part of their trip packages for meals, but a women or a community or women's group can actually be responsible for those meals. And so basically, if I'm charging them $15 for a lunch, the women prepare the lunch, they get the $15, and that's a portion of their commitment. The goal is to get them at 25% of the full cost. Oftentimes that is through simple things like preparing the meals. That's the most common. Others might know a bus driver, and that bus driver is going to let us, he's going to drive us around for half the cost. Others can find discounted materials, and if they can go and barter with a local hardware store and get a discount, that's a portion, because otherwise we'd have to pay full price. So if they can get a discount, that's part of their skin in the game. They're knocking on the door. So it is a commitment. We've had some women who do pre-baking, and then they stock up their money. Most of that money then is used to buy the food to prepare the meals, but they do have an investment. It's a great way to kind of see how engaged they are.
I got one funny story. I know we're trying to wrap up here soon, but we were in a very remote village. You only could get there by boat, and we were doing a build there, and it was mainly a female household. I think 4 or 5 females and one gentleman there. He was so happy to see some other guys around for a while, and this guy was strong as an ox. He was probably almost my age, but he could lift stuff. I mean, it was unbelievable how strong he was. But while we were doing some build, he made some cups for us out of coconuts. So he had this bandsaw or whatever, and he got these coconuts, made them, and he gave them to us. And he goes, the ones he gave to the men, he goes, whiskey, whiskey, whiskey. And then he'd give the ones to the women, and he'd go, wine, wine, wine. So at the end of the day, at one point, we said, well, we got to put some whiskey in here. We got to have some whiskey in our coconut cups. So, and the interesting thing was, for all you Scandinavian Lutherans, this guy's name was Ole.
Oh,
It
His
sealed
name-
the deal for Brad.
He went
they were
by-
best friends after that.
Yes, he went by Ole. So here we are, and we go to this store, which is pretty much somebody's house, and he's kind of hinting that he wants kind of the good whiskey up on the top. So we go, okay, we'll get you that for you. So here we are, 4 of us with Ole in Costa Rica with whiskey in a coconut shell, drinking whiskey with a guy named Ole. But
On the beach.
On the beach, yeah. So I go, this is kind of out-of-body experience here. But it was actually short for Orlando. It wasn't actually short for Ole Olson or anything like that.
that's so great. This has just been really fun to hear your stories. And you guys, so they had great pictures. They put them in a presentation, and poof, I've never seen it. I don't know where it went. It's just into thin air. So when we'll put the video up on Facebook, and
I'll post a couple pictures, but the pictures is you can, just imagine the greens and the lush tropical, and then them working hard, and, the cement base, and then brick by brick. And
Smiles, lots of smiles,
yeah.
hard work.
I would, one of the things our group did is we brought things to do with the kids. We brought Uno and Tenzi and jump ropes and American candy, and it was great because we would spend time in the afternoon. About 3 o'clock was time to have coffee and bread, and Kate, one of the girls that went with us, women that went with us, she got to learn how to make empanadas one day, and I made tortillas, but every day we would have a little bread and coffee, and then everybody would sit down and play games. We'd play Uno, and the kids in the family, she had 2 girls and 2 boys. They would practice saying things in English, and the girls would practice things in Spanish, and there were so many laughs and giggles and just really a lot of fun, special moments. In that time, we got to do things like that. It was great.
Brad's group did that quite a bit too. They were in working and playing with the kids, as well as the actual women of group got involved playing Tenzi, I think, with.
Yeah, they were learning all sorts
Yeah, they had a great time, and that's so much about that building, that community, and that fellowship.
Yeah.
We were all in tears when we left it.
Mr. Curry, you have a question.
How old do you have to be to go?
That's a great question, and really that's a gauge mostly for parents. And we do ask that if anybody does come with us under the age of 12, that there's constantly parental supervision for that individual. But we have had one 10-year-old, one 12-year-old, and actually a lot more, because we actually bring in volunteers within Costa Rica as well, and a lot more of those come with the whole family. So you can see here in this family situation, there were 4 of them, and 3 of, well, one was a toddler, but 2 of them were in elementary school, and they were the most hardworking young men, and they just need supervision. For us, that was the most important part. Having the ability to travel and experience something is really important, but if you're ready to work and your mommy and daddy want to go with you and be by your side to make sure you don't get your finger smashed by a heavy brick, we're all in for sharing the culture and sharing the experience.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're hearing interest, and it does make you want to go, so thank you for sharing so eloquently and descriptively. And the more I hear about Bricks to Bread, and the energy and the growth, I mean, it's infectious. So we will, as Nancy said, more information out in the narthex, and then we'll be letting you know in our communications about the happenings. So thank you so much. I just next week we'll have Patty Wetterling here, so we're having some fun shifts to start the year off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, 2 weeks. Man, I think certain weeks. It's the last Sunday in September. Thank you. All right.